Show. Here I am in my American shirt. It is the week of 4th of July. We got Joe, we got Dan, and we are happy to bring to you another edition here. It's officially Foursquare season, I feel like. When it's the 4th of July, we are in the middle of true and tried Foursquare season. I know the World Championships is in spring, it used to be in the winter. But I feel like the bulk of Foursquare play around the world, everybody's doing it, is usually occurring in the summer, I would say. Would you guys agree?
I would agree.
Yeah.
I was 100% summer player, only played in the summer.
I think there's a lot of people, a lot of leagues, a lot of camp. I think it's probably between recess and summer camps. Probably pretty close. Someday we'll have to send our minions out into the field to take some sort of poll to figure all that out. Until that day, we'll just continue with this show. How's everybody doing?
I mean, it's definitely a warm weather, it's, shoveling snow or playing on ice or anything like that. So it's an outdoor
I feel
activity.
like it's basically if there's no snow, you're playing Foursquare. No rain, no snow, you're playing Foursquare. I think that's what it is. So spring through fall, maybe even in the winter.
I think you just came up with a slogan, Joe. Write that down.
No rain, no snow, Foursquare.
So we're gonna it's the post office one. Neither rain nor snow will do it, but neither rain nor sleet nor dark of night.
Yeah.
Snow will stop it, but
we don't want to get sued though. We don't want to get sued. So we just need to make sure we change it up a little bit. We got to patent all this stuff. All right. We just added a couple.
If it ain't snowing, I ain't. Or if it ain't snowing, I'll be playing. So we'll come up with something.
We were talking about this offline. Of course, we have our friends over in AI. I mean, we could just punch this into the computer algorithms, and Skynet will just probably punch out a couple of little slogans for us to use. So
no, that's too easy.
Yeah,
we're better than figure it out for ourselves.
Gonna do it old. I mean, if we're doing that, I'm gonna send a robot dog as my champion to play Foursquare for me. I guarantee you, someone's gonna program a Foursquare playing robot, and it'll be unbeatable.
Plot twist: there's no rule in the rule book that says I can't destroy said robot dog.
So I went to career day at my daughter's. I think it was in kindergarten or first grade school. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm super cool. I got a solar panel. Like, this is awesome. Somebody showed up with one of those robot dogs and was following her around the hallways. And I was like, all right, I give up. She wins. It was great. It was so cool.
Yeah, maybe someday in like 2035 when we're meeting as we are now, one of the things on the top of the agenda will be our like robots, like what rules do robots need to follow during Foursquare play versus real humans. Until then, let's discuss
remember when we just all played Foursquare manually?
Yeah, remember that? Yeah. When we used to use our hands, remember that?
Pepperidge Farms remembers.
What was that?
Pepperidge Farms remembers.
Yes. Oh man, now I want a Milano.
You're welcome.
Thanks. A mint one specifically.
All right, well, let's just jump in. So we are, what are we? Not even 2 weeks away from a little event that we're going to be having, a Foursquare thrown together event, tournament, non-sanctioned by anyone or anything. Dan, this actually got brought up on the call or on our show last time. And Dan is going to be coming from Houston, and Joe, you are not attending.
Nope. That is correct. I am not able to come this time.
Okay. Next time, it's happening.
Just got to work, and I'm helping a few people move.
Okay. We have
currently. Guys? I was going to say, so I need to bring some beer back from, I think it's called Treehouse Brewing, for my brother-in-law. While I'm there, anybody want me to get some refreshments for the event? And maybe before I ask that, you should tell me how many people are coming.
Well, we'll start with the second question first. So as of right now, we have 6 people. Okay. However, and I mentioned this, I think, in the text chain, I know that there are more people who are like very interested. Whether or not they're available and all that is different, and I haven't seen anyone respond from my last text a couple of days ago. Um, uh, I'm gonna probably reach out to people individually starting next week. As you know, in a group text, people are less inclined to actually respond, but I do want to get a better sense and idea of how many people are coming for, you know, some of the reasons that you just mentioned.
Audience
So
purposes.
yeah, I'll definitely keep everyone posted as we get closer, but I will be reaching out to people individually to kind of check in. As of right now, we have 6, so I mean that's still obviously enough for us to play, plus 1 or 2 people. So either way, I think it's happening. It's just a matter of now, some of the details there. Obviously, if
Excellent.
people bail out or any of that, I mean, because 5 or 6 people, as you know, one or 2 people bail out now, or and you have a pretty big commitment here, so I don't, I'd feel bad if something like that happens, but
And we
I'll
got
keep you posted.
me, you, and your son is 3, so we're good.
Yeah,
We
my
can play together.
brother is in
We got enough to make the
my
trip worthwhile.
yeah, my there's another friend of mine who is in, and then and then my other brother is also in. He's a little injured. He had a hip situation occur, but he's still thinking he's going to be able to play. So, I'm really hoping there's an individual that is on the text chain, who had let me know previously he's interested and he hasn't responded yet. I'll be reaching out to him. His name is Bubba Palucha. He is, with all due respect to you guys, he is, and all due respect to my brother, who is right behind him, he is the best Foursquare player, right up there with Mark, um, 4-time champion Mark Pryor. I would say between Mark and Bubba, they are the best Foursquare players I've ever seen, ever played against. So I'm really hoping he's coming. And then my
That sounds
brother is
that
also
sounds like a trip
excellent too.
worth making. What's the Michelin star? One star is worth a reservation, two stars is worth a detour, 3 stars is worth a special trip. So
Yeah,
Mark and your other brother are a 3-star Michelin restaurant. They're worth a specific trip to Boston specifically to play against.
I would say yes. I would
Excellent.
absolutely say yes. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
looking forward to it.
yep.
I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. So we'll do what we can to maybe take some pictures, some videos. We'll report back on our next show and let everyone know how that goes. But we can have a good fun time. And of course, if you're listening to this and you're in the area, or even if you're not in the area, uh, reach out if you want to get together. We're just getting together for this little hour or two of Foursquare action. Plan is to do it outside at a court that I have found in my town. And then I also have a rain backup option in a pavilion as well if need be. So,
Excellent.
by the way, the court that we're going to be playing at is a court that I've never played at before. And it does actually, I know one of our hot topics have been this out of play zone. It does have um, uh, like probably one side of the court has a fence, maybe 5 feet away or so. So it shouldn't, I don't know if it'll come into play that much, but just an interesting thing to kind of like, I'm just more aware of that now. And there's another court in my town, which by the way, Dan, I want to show you just while you're here. I'll take out a little tour of it,
Yeah, man.
which also has a fence all the way around. So yeah, it should be good. Let's see. We have 2 other things that I wanted to touch base on before we then kind of dive back into our regularly scheduled program. One, I'm gonna move. I've been talking too much, so I'm gonna flip things around a little bit.
Actually, can I chime in real quick?
That perfect. Yes, please.
So one thing you said, 2 of the courts have like boundaries, you said.
One of them has a boundary that is a fence that goes all the way around the court. And then one has like one
What's the
side of it.
distance from the fence to the court? 5 feet, 10 feet?
The distance from the fence to the court and the one that the fence is all the way around is absolutely way too close to the court. It's probably only
5 feet or
4 feet,
something.
which is exactly why we're not playing there for this event.
Okay.
If I could have, assisted with the construction of this Foursquare court, it absolutely would have not have been that way, because that is just too close. Like, if you play there, we're gonna constantly be having to like jump over the fence to go get the ball.
The other court is just open, kind of like it was in the town hall.
The other court is open, however, one side of the court does have just the way that picture. Hold
The way
on,
that
let's
it's
see.
built into the.
See if I. Oh, okay. The picture is from the other side, the other angle, so never mind. Yeah, the way that it's built, like it's open, but one side of the court does have a fence, which is probably about 8 feet away.
So is that the court you're planning on going to?
Yes.
Okay. I would recommend you guys toying around with the idea of that 10, well, it's 8 feet, we'll say, that 8-foot perimeter.
Yeah.
Toying around with the idea and
Test
do
out.
some slams.
Yes. Yes.
Do
Yeah.
some slams and see if you can get some video of it. See how that would look like. This would be a decent trial run. No, this would be a step 1 in the trials to see
I like it.
about the perimeter with the slam that we've been talking about the last 2 months.
Yes.
And I think we, to expand on that, I think we use this as a trial run for a lot of things that we've been talking about.
Yes.
Does this work? Doesn't? Hey, try to game
I
the
highly,
system. Yeah, bring some
whoever
tape,
shows,
mark out the outside.
yes, make sure it's all, square-ish, but try and make sure, the distances are the same. And whoever's in line, if there's like 6 of you, right? I would say have one person kind of be like a judges, just as a backup to those who are playing. Like if you hit line or something, and have the other person have a camera and just record. Especially if you're doing those trial, like, hey, we're gonna try to do some slams to try out the distancing or what have you. And that way this helps us, the 3 of us, and our viewers see what's going on. And we can even have more conversation, more in-depth conversation on these topics. Because
Absolutely.
the last
No,
2
I love
months, all
that.
we've been doing is
Love that.
hypothetical. Now we can start taking these theories and putting them in practice and see firsthand what it's like.
I love it. I mean, I love me some experiments. I think it's a great idea.
That's the engineer in me.
Love it. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes to all of
Eric,
it.
I think we'll need some tape and a measuring tape. Tape measure.
Chalk. Go with chalk.
Yep, that
Because we-
works.
Can just put I'll just put it, and I can even go, well, it doesn't matter, but I was gonna say I can go ahead of time. That doesn't matter. We bring some chalk and we can just draw the 10-foot perimeter around.
Or 8 foot if it's
Or
if
8
that
or
wall's
whatever.
8 feet away.
Yep.
Let's keep that same.
Yep.
Yep.
And then we'll kind of keep an eye out on that. As far as filming it, yes, absolutely. Maybe we can even think of some way of setting up just a stationary camera or phone to just basically film the whole thing
Good.
while we're playing. I mean, either way. But yes,
I think like that, or even if that's not feasible, just having someone with a phone out and
Yeah.
recording just the experiment trial run. That's it.
yeah,
I can bring a tripod. I've got it's a phone mount with some legs that we wrap around
Yep.
a fence, and it mounts the phone on a fence, and it just sits there and records.
that would be perfect if you can, fit it in with your, yeah.
I'm gonna go grab it right now, actually.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. Yeah, I tip the hat to you, Joe, for thinking of that, because I think that is a great idea.
So next on the list is what, the website, or are you planning
It
on?
is.
Okay.
It is the website, but let's jump to, if you may not, and maybe it's better that you don't, considering what we just discussed, because coming out of this upcoming event, there may be additional components that may play a part into this. But let me just set the scene, Joe, and then if you want to give an update, if there is one. So one of the things that we've been discussing a little bit offline, I forget if we talked about this during a show or not. I think we may have, but is the option of having an official be part of the
Yes.
World Championships.
We've discussed this online twice now.
Yes.
Updates. I talked to a couple people. I won't be able to find anyone because they I agree with their thought process is if they're gonna drive out to Bridgeton,
You
they
don't
would
wanna
rather play. Yeah. And it's like I don't blame you. I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I even tried bribing them. It's like, even if it's for $100, I'm like, okay. But
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
think
what
it's
we
maybe
did
we
last
can
time. Sorry, gotcha.
maybe we can entice it for potential community service or something.
Yeah, either that or it's correct me if I'm wrong, Joe. It sounds like you may have reached out to just like people you know. Have we thought about posting something to a literal, like an actual LinkedIn or not LinkedIn,
I was gonna say Reddit, Craigslist.
Reddit or Craigslist or Indeed or like some sort of actual job recruitment site or more of a social like a Craigslist, whatever, kind of do something like that where it's being relayed and proposed as this for
I
a
haven't
paid.
looked into that yet.
Okay.
If that's something you want me to, I can take that as an action item.
I think so. Dan, what do you think? I think it's worth exploring at least.
I think it's worth putting on a Reddit forum. I don't know if there's one that's local. I don't know exactly which sub it would go on, but absolutely saying, hey, look, we need a rep. If you want to come play, come play. We also did, I think what we did, Joe, is you played, and then if I remember right, when you got eliminated, you started reffing. So for later rounds and certainly for experimentation for next weekend, we can say, look, just play the role of the ref. We need someone to see what it's like. We can do some learnings before committing to the World Championships that we have 9 months for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're good for next weekend. I mean, I'm certainly happy to take some time out of the playing and ref and get some feedback on it, get some guidelines. But hopefully we can come up with something. I love the idea of putting out a Reddit forum and saying, hey, look, we're playing Foursquare. If you want to ref, if you are a ref and you just like reffing and don't like Foursquare, we'd love to use you. So
Yeah.
I think it's just finding people.
And I think it's okay to even, I don't know if we want to imply or come out and say that, it being paid is an option. I don't know if we want to say it definitely is because we don't know if it is yet or not. I know that we wanted to take this first step before we kind of ran it up the flagpole. So, yeah, I think that would be a good next step, Joe, if you're game for that.
All right, so Reddit forum.
Cool. Real-time situation going on right now. Let's see what's happening here. Hello? I am. It's okay. No worries. Okay, bye. Alrighty. That would be the wife who apparently forgot about this show. How dare she forget that I'm recording this glorious Foursquare show? The goodness. Okay. Next up on the agenda, I'm very excited about this. I might be too excited. I might be over exaggerating how wonderful I think this is. However, how do I say? Okay.
Just like
You guys may be aware, and our listeners may be aware. Square4.org, the website. Okay.
Yep.
From what I know, and this is just for me doing basically my own deep dive research and asking a few questions of a few people. So I might be wrong. However, this website appears to be a website that was created almost 20 years ago.
Yep.
I think over 20 years ago, by an individual. I hope it's okay to say. I don't see why not.
I think it was Sean.
Sean, I forget his last name, but that's okay. Sean. It may have been him and maybe his partner, girlfriend, wife. I'm not sure, but either way, I believe he created it. He was, I want to say, I assume the leader of the Boston Foursquare Club.
Yes, that is correct.
And that group very much was pretty big for quite a long time. They somehow connected with Peter Lowell, which is how the World Championships all kind of got initiated and whatnot, up in Maine, of course. However, this website seemed, and I say that in the past tense on purpose, seemed to be the central hub of all thing Foursquare, not just
Yes.
their particular league and not just the World Championships, but FAQs, rules, you know, like equipment, like everything that, you know, a website maybe would have for a particular sport. That this was that website. If you Google Foursquare, it is the first hit you get.
Basically only.
And basically only, yes. Honestly, it's awesome. Here's the issue. It seems like since COVID, which obviously is now 4 or 5 years ago, this group and slash website is basically null and void. Essentially, I don't think the group happens anymore. And the website, though, is still operational and running and does have a specific page for the World Championships, which does get very minorly updated when the championships are happening. Other than that, there is nothing whatsoever going on, and for 4 or 5 years, not just for the last week or month or year. I wanted to set that all up because I have a few times reached out to Sean, and I've been trying to partner with him to see if he was still like, hey, this site is awesome. Like, although I see though that there's not much else going on in a while. Are you interested in maybe partnering together? And I'm happy to maybe assist or take over certain aspects, or hey, I have some ideas on things that we can add to. I basically have gotten ghosted.
You're saying hostile takeover?
So everybody take out your tridents. No. So I've over the last like few years, a couple of times I've reached out and I've gotten ghosted. I did talk to him a little bit before the World Championships because I wanted to connect with him in regards to the 20th anniversary that we just had. And as you guys know, we presented Peter with a 20th anniversary plaque, and I wanted to do the same for Sean because he's been involved as well. But he obviously, and that's the thing, he hasn't been coming to the World Championships either since COVID. Yeah. So, and again, I'm not trying to say anything negative or say or I have no idea what's going on with him. I don't really know him. Maybe he's lost interest. Maybe he's had a personal situation. I have no idea. But the bottom line is that the sport of Foursquare deserves a website that properly encapsulates the current situation of what's going on.
Would you like me to reach out to him? Because I've met him a handful of times through my years at the championships. If you want to forward me any communication that you've had via email, that way I can get myself caught up and then I can reach out to him.
I appreciate that. Let me stew on that for a moment because, and that's an option. I've kind of already taken the next step, which is why I'm hesitant. So I'll table that and I'll think about that, Joe. We can talk about it offline. The next step that I took was, okay, you guys may or may not know this about me. I am not a creative person. I'm very analytical. I am very, I'm not good at art. You know what I mean? Like graphic design. I'm a project manager. It's what I do, and it's what I'm good at. But so therefore, creating a website is just probably kind of not my thing. However, and it's funny it was mentioned earlier. It's 2025, and we now have things that help us with those types of things: ChatGPT, AI, and all that. So I want to say a couple of months ago, I started exploring ChatGPT and AI features to assist me in creating a Foursquare website. And I gotta say, I think it's coming out freaking awesome. I am not done creating it yet because I'm the type of person that wouldn't want to roll it out. Like I want to roll it out to you guys first and have you guys look at it, provide any and all feedback. What isn't good? What is good? What should we add? What should so that's my goal is to get it to you guys for you guys just to review it. And I'm the type of person I don't want to do that until I feel like it's ready. And I'm probably, I don't know, halfway through.
Awesome.
I've been learning a lot about coding and all these things that I never knew about. So that is the announcement, is that I'm in the midst of creating this website that will, I hope, take the spirit of Square 4 and bring it into today's age and keep it going. For example, Peter reached out to Sean back in April, whenever it was, just to post the results with the pictures of the most recent champions and whatnot. And that, like, there was no response. So, and he hasn't done that. Like, so
And Sean, if you're listening,
yes,
reach out.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
I mean, we're not trying to take it over. We're trying
right,
to make sure that it
right.
continues. Eric, I'm going to put some words in your mouth, but I imagine you're
Yeah,
saying, yeah, we want to keep the content on there. We want to make sure that there is a place for Foursquare and all the work, Sean, if you're listening, that you did over the last 20 years. We want to keep it going.
yeah,
We want to collaborate. You've got a ton of great stuff on there.
yeah.
If people keep emailing you, yeah, we would. We want to make sure their questions get answered and we grow the game and people have a place to go and congregate and talk about it and learn about events that are coming up and all of that stuff. So I'm hearing Eric volunteer to maintain it, and we want to make sure that we're not just stomping on you, but really, really taking your work and bringing it into the future and hopefully taking over some of the effort for you.
Well said. Yeah, I don't want to step on any toes. And as a matter of fact, I kind of already done this. Almost everywhere in the site that I'm building, I'm putting in for anything Foursquare related prior to 2023, see square4.org. Like I'm not trying to take over. I guess in a sense that it is. It's really kind of continuing the tradition and continuing the, getting the sport out there because
Do you want help with the website?
yeah.
So let's take this.
I'm awful at it, but
Why don't we do this? I'm going to make an action item. Why don't you and I, because we're already like 30 minutes into this and there's still a lot to talk. Why don't you and I get offline and we'll discuss this topic more, see how I can help.
Yeah. Yeah. Would love the help. Like I said, without asking you guys at this point, although I was pretty sure you would be in on it, and it sounds like I'm right. My goal was to get this as ready as possible and then provide it to you two to then give a complete thorough review. But if we want to get involved in you just like building it as well, I am all about that. So yeah, we can talk more about it.
Sweet. All right. What's the next thing on the list there, Eric?
Next thing on the list, let's see. Time check. It's fine. I'm assuming we have another 20 minutes or so, everyone. So
We got about 30. Yep.
30. Got it. Okay. Back to the regularly scheduled agenda. Ball. Okay. So let's see. Let's just discuss ball in general, the Foursquare ball. And then Dan, you had a couple of things back from a long time ago that you wanted to discuss on it, which I'll read just to remind you what that is. According to the square4.org site, an 8.5-inch rubber playground ball inflated to 2 pounds. There are different balls out there. There's like bigger balls, and then there's like I don't want to say smaller, but smaller than the bigger balls, which I think the balls that we use for the World Championship. And those are the balls that I prefer to use for Foursquare, the smaller version of the playground kickball. Let's start there. What do you guys think about that?
I don't have measurements in front of me. Actually, I do have a ruler in front of me, but translating that to an actual ball is tough. Size, I think, might depend kids versus adults. I'm guessing kids might prefer a slightly smaller ball, just so it's a little more manageable. I've found that playing with one where your hands are this far apart is a little awkward. Yeah, I think we've always used that playground ball. If it's the 8.5-inch, I don't know. I don't know if it's 8.5 or 12. Seems a bit large just looking at this giant metal ruler right here. But I don't think I've ever really had a problem with a playground ball. That rubber is nice. It's not breaking your hands. It's not too heavy.
Hmm.
Doesn't float around, so it's nice and bouncy. The spec, the 2-pound spec, hey, if someone puts a spec on it, great. But inflated so it's bouncy without rocketing around like a bullet. It's always been sort of a good way to do it. Anytime we have to play with something else, you're like, this ain't right. A volleyball, a basketball, it doesn't work very well.
That being said, I mean, if you have to, like, if you're in a family party and it's the only ball you have and it's that or not or nothing, then yeah, I mean,
And you
a
adjust to it,
basketball, a volleyball, a soccer ball, even like maybe
Yeah.
certain versions of Nerf balls.
I will say a basketball, you adjust to the rules. Okay, you may need to carry a basketball just a little bit so you're not breaking your hand or breaking your wrist every
Mhm.
time you hit it. And you go, what do we have to roll with to make this work? That's going to be a little different. Don't abuse it. Hey,
Mhm.
could you get away with throwing it at somebody? Probably, but that's not what you're after. That's not what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
The goal is really to make this work because there are no professional arenas with all of the equipment that's been standardized and tested and
Mhm.
certified and all that. So you roll with what you got to do.
Yeah, and I think one of the key points to the ball is the amount of like how it's inflated, the amount of air in it. I think one of the rule of thumbs I think I may have saw somewhere was if you hold it in front of you and without any force, just like let it go and let gravity take its course, it's needs to bounce 50% from where you dropped it. If it's less than that, then it probably needs a little bit more air. If it's more than that, then it maybe has a little bit too much air. Um, so I think that's kind of a good rule of thumb. Sometimes, like, I mean,
I like
we
it.
know, what a good four square ball just feels like. So, and as do maybe a lot of other people. So sometimes you can just kind of feel the ball and kind of just grip it and, have your fingers, dig into it a little bit to get a good sense as to if there's the proper amount of air in there.
I will
Show what
say
you're,
roundness is important, making sure it's
yes,
not so inflated that it's oblong and sort of oval shaped.
pigmented. Yeah, like sometimes I've had a couple of four square balls that I've like kept in my
Distorted.
garage over the winter. And I don't know if you guys remember Deflategate with Tom Brady and all that. Don't get me started on that. But yeah, it seems as if, temperatures and long periods of time does definitely somewhat dement the ball. So now I know to bring my four square balls inside the house during the winter. So that's
Or over
another thing to consider too.
overpressure. I mean,
Overpressure.
it's not a incredibly strong ball. It'll start to stretch in one
Hmm.
direction if it's overpressured.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe, anything else to add on balls or we can, yeah, I mean it is what it is. I think the only other thing is the texture, the feeling of the ball. I have seen some balls are more slidey, if you will, versus
Mhm.
some balls have more of a grip
Smoother.
to it. Yeah, smoother. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I mean this might be preference. I prefer the ball that has like a little bit more like that texture to it versus the smoothness of a.
I do too. It's got those stripes on it, and it's kind of that checkerboard tile pattern, and it
Yes.
just keeps going.
There's yeah,
They're all
yes.
kind of bumping into each other at right angles. Provides a good texture, and it's real mild. It's not.
Right.
Yeah, it's
I'm
it's
gonna
it's
be
more
this guy.
texture than bumps.
Not the ball that makes the game, it's the player that makes the game.
It
You
is.
just fill of great slogans today,
It
Joe.
is.
That's a t-shirt. That is a t-shirt. Or write that down. My
Yeah.
goodness. All
You
right.
show up and they're playing, you don't get no, you're not using the right ball. Like, don't be that guy. You hop in, you go, I gotta make it work. Yeah, man, they're playing this way.
Next one is what? Environment.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just gonna read this. Per rule book, the location of the World Championship, we kind of already covered this a little bit. The World Championships may vary. However, if the ball bounces in a square and hits a wall, the play is still alive, and the player whose square the ball bounces and is eligible to hit the ball after the ball strikes the wall, other rules apply. If the ball bounces in a square and then strikes a chair or someone in the line or another person, the player made an attempt and had a chance to hit the ball, the play is dead and that round starts over. However, if the player either did not make an attempt or had no realistic way of getting to the ball, then that player is out. Let's start there. I don't know, we kind of already covered this though, didn't we?
Yeah, a lot of this is rolling with your environment. We talked about, well, there's a fence behind this side of the court, but not that side. At the World Championship, there's chairs that are 2 or 3 feet behind the court on one side, but not another. What's the amount of space available? Fortunately, it seems like we're playing in relatively open areas. I'm curious about this pavilion. Is the ball going to hit the roof at one point? Hey, maybe. I don't know how it is.
Cathedral ceilings for the pavilion, so it shouldn't.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But it's, house rules. Is there going to be anything that gets in the way? Playing off a wall versus not playing off a wall, that's a different game at that point. You go, hey, there's two different styles there, and neither of them is necessarily bad. But we've talked a lot about this with,
yeah,
what if it's crowded? What if it's not? What if there's a pillar? What if there's, we played one time and there was a wall on the outer boundary of the court, so you physically could not exit your square because there was a 2-foot wall there. And you just have to kind of jump out of the way and hope it hit the wall before the ground, or if it hit the ground before the wall, it was in. So you just kind of, it's again sort of the rolling with what you got.
mm-hmm.
And I think that'll happen next weekend, where we say, this is the environment that we're in. We got to come up with something. And again, until we get to an arena that's got a standardized court and a standardized ball and standardized space and everything, you can't really come up with it, because it's relatively a pickup game. It's a relatively improvised game.
In a standard, or like in the best case scenario where we had an arena, what do you guys think would be the house rule? Maybe we kind of already covered this. I think that's what we've been talking about, but is that what you guys would agree would? So a 4-square court in the center of a huge gym or outside arena, whatever the case may be, we would have
infinite plane.
Infinite plane. We would have and again, I know we're still discussing the intricacies of this, but I would have the 10-foot out of play zone around the court, and then
maybe
that
not.
would be the best case scenario for your environment. But again, obviously, we're also talking about pickup games and these types of events that we're having, which I think, Dan, you're covering, which is that you got to bring in house rules and you got to establish what those house rules are. I mean, you don't have to. You can just play and let it play itself out. And then when something happens, then you discuss it, right?
Yeah. But for me, yeah, I mean, it's the infinite plane. I don't think if we had an infinite plane with the line, 100 feet away, I don't think you need the 10-foot. You go, hey, look, I'm going to hit it over there, 50 feet away, 80 feet away. If you can run over there and you know where it's going and you can get it back into play, your only rule limitation is the ball hit your square. If you get it into another one, you're good. That 10-foot one almost came in more because the town hall was so crowded and there was no way to access that. There was no way for a player to access that space.
Dan,
there's not really an out of bounds. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it goes back to my scenario 2 meetings ago where we're discussing the 10-foot rule. It's like numerous instances, at the Bridgeton Academy and even at Poland Regional High School where I started playing Foursquare, there's been numerous times where people have slammed the ball in my square. I had to run 10, 20 feet. I think at the high school it was 30 to 40 feet where I had to hit the ball back each of those times. I was able to get it back in play. I think it comes down to
what's your obstacle?
The terrain, etc. Regarding the rule book, I think this is I think this is fair what the rule book's saying.
Yeah.
I think what we could put some sort of like an exception or a sub note of some sort, and we could put how many times they can call around dead and restart it. Because let's take this last championship, for example. How many times did the ball hit people in line? Okay.
Exactly.
So for every single time,
a lot for anyone who wasn't there.
You cannot state that no one did not make an attempt. Every single person where the ball hit the square then went into someone in line, that person in the square always made an attempt.
Yeah.
So then how many times are you going to start over that round when you've had 20 people in line waiting to get in? Okay. So keep the rule as is. We need to make a cliff note or a sub note, if you will, that states no more than 2 dead rounds at once.
Or you say, hey, look, the rules are written for the ideal scenario, which is there are 4 people playing. Anybody who's in line is hundreds of feet away. Is it completely out of the realm of possibility? And then the exceptions and the rules come in and say, we're going to adjust to every situation that's not ideal. We're going to adjust to the situation where there's a line 2 feet from the court with 15 people in it. That's what needs to be accounted for.
Yeah, because you can't at Bridgeton Academy. There a line used to wrap around the entire gymnasium, but the line was
far enough
at least 5, maybe 6 feet, 6 feet from the courts on like the outer courts. So,
what about this radical idea? After the, say, second time this hypothetical occurs where someone is getting in line, is getting hit, or a spectator, is getting hit with the ball. After that, if you're in line and you get hit with the ball, you get a no.
You're out. Yeah, I like that.
Get the hell out of the way.
No.
Pay attention and get the hell out of the way. How about that?
And then you go, this guy was behind me, the line for the other, because we had a 2 deep line with lines for 2 courts. I mean, any of these things will get gamed, and I think what we're going for is what's the ideal scenario. We understand everything else needs to be adjusted for.
Yeah.
But that leads to another question. Okay, what is a do-over? Is it a square off between the 2 people involved? Is it all 4? Is it fair?
No. So per the rule book, it's if the round needs to start over,
it's everybody.
Everybody.
That's everybody. It's the entire round starts for that court.
And that's where a decision needs to be made, though, Joe. Right? Where it's like, okay, was it specifically these 2 people who could get out? And say 1 and 3 had nothing to do with it.
But this scenario we're discussing is involved where, Eric, you hit the ball in my square.
Mm-hmm.
I made an attempt to get said ball, but the ball hit
someone in line.
Whatever. And I couldn't get it. But I made the attempt.
Yeah. And so therefore,
and you could have got it. Not only do you make an attempt, but there has to be some sort of subjective realistic way that you could have got there too. That's also part of the rule book as well.
Yes.
And I would say that's the ref's call.
Yes.
So
did you have a realistic shot at it or not?
If the ball bounces in a square and then strikes a chair, someone in line, another person thing, and the player made an attempt and had a chance to hit the ball,
that's what
the play is dead.
Yeah.
Or do we rewrite the rule book because I like square offs?
No, the reason why
the rules are the rules.
The reason why I think the do-over makes more sense in this situation than a square off is because in this example Joe just outlined, Joe's going to get it. He has a realistic chance of getting it, and it hit somebody in line. If Joe did get it, he could have hit it into anybody's square, and those other people are still alive to play and get out.
But here's the thing: if I did manage to hit it but failed, then I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm interpreting that if I had a chance to hit the ball, but I couldn't because the ball bounced off the obstacle, person, whatever. I had the chance, but because of the obstacle, I failed.
Oh, maybe we need to just reword what we mean by that rule.
If the ball bounces in a square, then strikes an obstacle, and the player made an attempt and had a chance to hit the ball.
Maybe we have to be consistent.
How are we interpreting had a chance? Is it did we hit the ball, or
had a chance
did we actually hit the ball, or did we show that we had the opportunity to hit the ball?
Good question.
I think you had a realistic chance of making a legal hit.
Yes, if you had a realistic, that's my interpretation as well. If you had a realistic chance of not just nicking the ball, because you had a realistic chance of returning that ball into a square, into a legal hit.
But for the obstacle, play would have continued as normal.
So why don't we do this. So I'm just writing some notes on the agenda here. So first, some note. Let's add limits to the do-overs. No more than 2 as just a baseline.
What happens on the third one?
Yeah, we have to define now what happens on the.
So then
all 4 people are out.
Let's remove. Why don't remove had a chance to hit the ball?
Yeah, that needs to be better defined, and I think a better definition, and we can change it, is
that or
would likely have been able to legally continue play in the opinion of the ref.
Yeah.
And without a ref, it's in the opinion of the crowd.
Yeah. Whoever the.
But here's the thing. So make a scenario. Eric hits the ball into my square. Ball goes to heads towards the people in line. And
again, you're being stymied by an obstacle, right?
So
the obstacle.
Let's create the scenario. Help me out here. Okay. So if the ball hits my square and it goes to people, goes to the line of people, what happens? Does someone catch the ball, or do people kind of move out of the way, or does the ball bounce off them? So now
I think it doesn't matter, because the obstacle is them being there, and at least in many ways the ball is hit. You're not just going to plow into them, somebody looking the other direction to try to get at this ball. You're going to stop because you're like, wait a second, the obstacle is here.
So if that's the case, I had really no chance to hit the ball. If I'm running towards line of people, I'm not going to plow them.
You would have had a chance to hit the ball if they were not there. If the obstacle were not there. Yeah.
That's
so I had to stop going after it because I would have injured maybe myself, if not others. Therefore,
and that's you didn't get to the ball, but if that obstacle were not there, you would have.
I made the attempt.
That's why I'm saying the rule is not completely written.
So
I mean, the
that's
rule
what
is saying, you have to have. I think it's more about the likely outcome. The ref is saying, if that line of people weren't there, Joe would have made a legal play. Likely, Joe likely would have made a legal play.
Well, I could have maybe hit it back, but then at some point, there's got to be a way of saying no. There's no way you're going to make that.
Absolutely.
So, I think, but we have to set these rules up where there's not always going to be a ref, though.
When we say ref, I think we were referring to the ref, meaning if there's a ref, an actual ref, or if the ref is the spectators, the other competitors, the people watching. I think that's what we mean when we're saying ref.
And really what we're getting at is Foursquare doesn't work very well when there's a lot of obstacles in the way. We're definitely working around them. We're making judgment calls. We're trying to figure out what to do about it. But
we play off walls and ceilings, like we do that already. So I guess where do we stand on this rule? Do we? And the player made an attempt, and do we want to remove?
I would say we change the rule. The rule is not the player made an attempt to touch the ball at all. I don't think the rule should be the player made an attempt to touch the ball. I think the rule should be the ball was hit into Joe's square. Joe, in the opinion of the ref, had a realistic chance to continue play that he was unable to execute on because the obstacle was in the way, whatever the obstacle is. If the ref believes that Joe would have likely been able to continue play, Joe is not out. If Joe
round starts over.
2 over.
Correct. And then we argue square off versus all 4, which is a separate issue. But I'm throwing the rule book out and saying, hey, let's write new rules. If Joe did not attempt to go after the ball, didn't see the ball, or if it was clear that Joe was going to be out.
Or didn't have a realistic chance of getting the ball, I think, right? Because the ball is hit into Joe's square. It is a slam Again,
That
let's
is
just leave
going
out this whole
100
out
feet
of
into
play
the
zone
distance.
thing. Right. It is a
Yeah.
slam that goes 40 feet way out of the way. Joe is going to try to go get it, and he starts to go get it. The
But it's
ball
not going to
lands
happen.
40 feet away. Joe is currently
Don't
30 feet
underestimate me,
away.
Dan.
And the ball, right before it
100
hits the
feet.
ground, hits somebody's foot.
Yeah.
You're
No.
still out. There is no way. If that ball didn't hit that person's foot, you were 30 feet
You were
away. You know what I
still
mean?
going to be out.
You're
Yeah.
still going to be out, which is why it's a realistic chance of returning the ball, which is a subjective determination.
Yep.
That's where we just need to figure out the wording of how to define, assuming we all agree to that.
So,
Yeah.
but here's it.
It's
So
if the obstacle
we
impeded
need to
the
define
player
obstacles.
from, I think an obstacle is anything. I mean,
Yeah, but then you can
it could
twist
be
a rule. You can twist a rule on walls.
Anything but walls?
anything. I mean, a wall certainly. It's interesting because a
ceilings?
wall, yeah, walls and ceilings. I see them as permanent as opposed to movable. You can't do anything about them. So that would be more of a ground rule,
Which is
or
why
or
I
a
think we
house
should.
rule. Yeah,
Let me do
absolutely.
this.
But I think what we're getting to is referees are important and they will need to make judgment calls on things.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
just like they make a judgment call on in versus out, line versus not line.
If the ball
Yeah, they'll need to make some
bounces
judgment calls and stuff.
the square and then strikes an obstacle,
Other than wall and ceiling.
ceiling, and the player made an attempt to
Return the ball.
turn the ball
I say, and
and
would
okay.
likely have been able to do so legally. And I may be wording that wrong, but they likely would. They had a realistic chance of being able to continue play, that the obstacle impeded them from being able to execute.
Well, isn't that covered by and could have returned the ball? Isn't that the same thing? Return meaning return.
It
Maybe add the word
really just
legally.
it really just adds legally to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could I have returned the ball? Yeah, I could have returned it, but there was no chance it was going to actually go into someone's square.
Well, but that's what I mean by return. And again, maybe that's what we need to. But yeah, return meaning the word return in this means returning the ball legally. But if we need to add legally return the ball, right?
Yeah, I think we're on the same page, and we're just trying to word it correctly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so if the ball bounces in the square and strikes an obstacle, and the player,
I think it's not so much
okay,
that the ball
it's not
strikes an
and,
obstacle. It's
if
if the ball bounces in a player's square, and the player
then-
is impeded from returning it legally because of an obstacle.
Because it
Maybe
may
the
not
obstacle
be
is
the
in the player's
ball.
way. Maybe the ball's
Yeah.
hitting it, but there is something that would ideally not be there. That's preventing
Or we could
the
just
player.
say an obstacle impedes the ball and or player from, right? Because you're right, the ball could be fine and the player starts to go run for it and slams
And there's a
into
row of chairs.
Right.
Yeah. The trick is the obstacle is impeding the player from getting the ball back in legally, when if it were not there, they would have been able to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the obstacle blocks the ball.
Yeah.
Realistically, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the obstacle is blocking the ball. Maybe the obstacle is blocking the player. Maybe the obstacle is temporary. Maybe the obstacle is permanent. Maybe another ball flies into the court from another court, and and everyone's just thrown off. And there's all sorts of stuff going on.
I think this is what Thomas Jefferson and Herbie Hancock did when they were writing the Declaration of Independence.
Honestly, more or less.
Hey, the 4th of July almost, so. They just didn't have Zoom.
Physical Zoom.
And then attempt.
So Joe, while you're finishing out that, I think we want to hear what you came up with the wording. One quick thing on the environment that I just wanted to mention, which was when I was a single man back in those days, and I owned a condo, and it had an attached garage for like one vehicle. And what I did is because I'm a crazy Foursquare nut, is it only had enough room for 2 squares, it didn't have enough room for 4 squares. So I painted 2 squares in the cement of my garage, and I would play all the time with my brother, my cousin, my friends, whoever. And the walls, which were very flat in cement, only maybe about 2 feet away. Again, picture like a one car in a garage, and then like, enough room to open the door, right? Two,
I'm,
3 feet.
I'm picturing a squash court essentially.
Yeah,
Much
essentially.
smaller, obviously, but yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So our house rules, which was actually really cool, and I never played this way before, is that you could actually, the ball bounces in your square, and you can hit it off the wall into the other square, and it just made a
pool or
whole
indoor
new,
soccer.
yeah, it made a
Yeah.
whole new dynamic of play. And that's just, I just wanted to, we're on the topic of environment here still, so I just wanted to throw that out there for anyone who might have a one-car garage that has the same situation. It was really fun.
And we're getting to 4 square variants, just like all of the different chess variants.
All I heard was garage.
Switch up the order of the players on the back row. We got walls. Use the walls. Wall 4 square. It's not bad. It's just different game, different variation. Sorry, Joe, you were saying.
I was just saying all I heard was garage. Okay, so I'm only rewriting half the rule. If the ball bounces in a square, and if an obstacle is impeding the player from returning the ball, i.e., line of people, chairs, anything but walls and ceilings, and the player did make an attempt to retrieve the ball, the round is considered dead and the round will start over. If the player failed to make an attempt to return the ball, the player is considered out.
I would say if the player failed to return or did not have any realistic chance of being able to.
So that, either that or on front end of that, the first part you said, I think what's missing there is if the player it has to be determined, which is so subjective from the refs, that the player had a realistic chance of returning the ball, because all those things could happen. And there could still be a scenario like the one I outlined earlier about you being 30 feet away and it hits somebody's foot like that could happen, and you should still be out in that situation. I think that part just needs to.
There are scenarios where the line of people is not your get out of jail free card. You had no chance, and you are rightfully out because the obstacle was meaningless. It was present,
there could be gameplay.
I think there's so many. The thing is, I think there's so many. You can scrutinize to such a detail at this point, then, because, let's see, where was fourth? Okay, first, second, third.
Oh, it's funny because we can't even use 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm trying to think. So, if you were in the square that's next to a line of people, okay, could be second. Depends on the orientation, but let's say you're in the square that's next to a line of people. On the other side of the line of people, there were other courts, right? Let's take the first men's court, okay, from this year's championship.
Mm-hmm. And there was a kids' court right next to it.
On the other side of the line of people.
Where the lines were, it was too deep, both trying to funnel through a space that was about 4 feet wide.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's say I'm in that square, one of the squares next to the line of people. Mm-hmm. Eric slams the ball into my square, and in the direction of the ball was going over the people, right? I can't get to the ball because that line of people.
Right.
But the ball could have came down, I don't know, let's say 10 feet or so away, on the other side.
It goes almost straight up as opposed to almost straight forward.
Right.
Yeah.
If you
that's the referee's
to
call.
Go get the ball, and
which again,
basically ran into the line of people, I'm not saying you have to blast into them, but
an attempt in that case an attempt in that case may just be turning around and looking and say, I need to go this way, I can't move. I mean, that may
Right.
be an attempt, and that's all the referees call.
Mhm.
You know, you may make an
So-
attempt, and the referee says, no, that wasn't going to happen. Or you may make an attempt, and the referee says,
Yeah, you
yeah,
could
the
have
ball
got
is
there.
that ball is coming down 4 feet away. But
it's also subjective,
gonna happen.
and I think what I'm trying to do is I don't want to, because I don't want to say anything could happen. Because let's be honest, anything could happen. There's been many moments where something is like, yeah, that's not coming back, and it does end up coming back. I think I want to try and keep it as high level as possible, because how often is that going to happen in a round? Not very.
And I think that's
I-
why we've got a judge, is to say, you know, the judge is saying, I'm watching the game. I'm watching these people play. I understand their skill levels. I can predict which balls they are likely going to be able to hit and likely not. And I can call out and judge unfairness in the environment. I can
Unless
call out where
we-
somebody, you know, just got bad luck by something being in their way, or hey, you know, this line of people is always here. There's a
I-
ground rule about it, and I, as the judge, am the one enforcing that ground rule and saying,
I
you're on
agree
this side
about
of it, you're on that side of it.
I agree about that and about the judge and all that, but what I do want to challenge, with all due respect, Joe, when you just said to keep it as high level as possible. I'm not sure I agree with that. And the reason I say that is because I feel like rules should get into those details of it shouldn't matter how often it happens. If it could happen, it should be in the rule so that we can address it with a rule versus what do we do now? I mean, there are many rules in, say, I know baseball the best. So there are many rules in the baseball
Football.
rule book that
Yeah.
never ever happen, but it could, and it's there for you know what I mean? So that's
Either
my
way-
argument to that.
But either way, it's still subjective. That's at the end of the
There's
day.
absolutely going to be some
It's
subjectivity
always going to be
it.
subjective. Where
Yes.
I know I could have probably got that ball back, but the ref says no, and everyone else could probably say no. But I'm here saying,
Well, that's
maybe
the
you
same
guys
thing
could-
as I didn't think that was a line, but the ref said it was, right? I mean, there's got to
Or
be
I didn't think that ball went over the plate, but the ref said it did.
just
You know, there's
you're right about
definitely going to be
subjectivity,
subjectivity, and because the other option is the 4 players in the square argue about whether you could have gotten it.
And ultimately,
how do
we even have rules within
That's
rules where
the ref's job.
if we can't, if a ref, and again, sometimes a ref isn't going to be a ref. If a ref can't necessarily make that subjective call, showdown. That's why we have that in place too. All right, the guy who hit it and the guy who could be out, showdown. I mean, that's kind of what we
But
have
we're
to do sometimes.
yeah, I mean, we're putting onus on the ref to say, you've got to make a judgment call. You've got to make a subjective call, and sometimes 3 of the players will agree with it and 1 won't. Sometimes all 4 will agree with it. Sometimes no one will agree with it. And you'll go, look, this is my call. I'm making the call the way I see it. This is how I saw it, and we're putting that responsibility on the ref to make sure that, you know, the game is run fairly and properly and within the rules, but really fairly. You know, especially when it's in a non-ideal environment, there's
Mhm.
going to be a lot of, how are we going to work with this? You know, how are we going to make this fair? How are we going to make sure certain squares don't have an advantage? How are we going to make sure people aren't taking advantage? How are we going to make sure that the players don't ruin the game for the other players? And that's a bit on the ref. And I mean, I equate it to baseball at lower levels, probably not in the majors. One team gets a bigger strike zone than the other to make it fair, or, you know, refs will have different thresholds for who could have realistically gotten to something. And the ultimate answer is you have a ref training academy. You know, you train all the refs the same way, and you hold them to the same standard, and they all kind of see eye to eye at the same level and with the same thresholds. But you know, we're not there. We're not there yet. So we're just putting the responsibility on one dude.
if an obstacle is impeding the player from returning the ball, line of people, chairs, etc., and the player did make an attempt to retrieve the ball, and if the ball is deemed to could have been legally brought back into the game, the round is considered dead.
Yes.
The round will start over.
Yep.
There it is.
If the player failed to make an attempt to return the ball, the player is considered out.
Or if they had or
No
if
realistic
I think it's
chance
saying
of-
the same thing because it's just
in the other.
it's just the opposite of what you said the first time. Because the first time was made an attempt, had a chance, and then the second one would just be the remaining scenarios: did not
Yes.
make an attempt or did not have a chance.
Yes.
So
We got there.
you've got it.
Yeah.
You've got it.
And
Are you
then
good with that, though,
I
Joe?
want to add a limit to the start over. One start
then what-
over.
So what's the consequence, and who does it apply to?
The player.
Which player?
The one where the ball.
So there's a
the
lot of
one-
people behind me. All I have to do is hit it that same way twice, and then you're out.
I'm not sure I agree with this one.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that.
What do you
mean?
Some, I don't know.
What's
I don't-
confusing?
So I'm not saying it's confusing. I'm saying I don't like the direction it's going. So there's a line of people, you get stymied by them.
Yep.
I'm gonna get the ball. I'm just gonna hit it again.
Yep.
Same ball, same play, exact same thing.
Not necessarily.
But this time you're out.
Well, so it's saying is if you made an attempt, yeah, and if it was legal to come back, you're still in.
Oh, are we
Because of
talking?
the
Are we talking
obstacle.
about the do-over? Or are we talking?
Yes.
I thought we were talking about different things. Sorry.
So
what are
During
we
the
talking-
So
do-over,
If you get one do-over for the round. It's kind of like if you had a bad serve, one do-over.
you
it's
get one
similar to
you get one
that.
obstacle do-over.
We have to put something in place because you could keep going to the rule and saying, well, there's an obstacle. There's an obstacle. There's no limit to how often you can do it. By adding a limit,
Or the answer is that play that takes advantage of the obstacle is an illegal play. Maybe it's not on the person receiving the ball, it's on the person hitting it to say, if you hit it that way again, you're out. You knew the obstacle was there. You know, don't take advantage of the obstacle, try to get someone. And I'm not sure I fully like it, but we're
that's
getting
why-
at
How about this? How about this?
yeah, how do we deal with the environment?
You get one do-over for this particular obstacle situation. If it happens a second time in the same round, the two players involved have a
Are
showdown.
both? Oh, I was gonna say are both out.
I
Oh.
would rather have it be a
I
showdown.
like that better.
I'd rather have a showdown. Yeah.
I like
we
just
okay with
kicking two
that?
people out.
Well,
That gets more people in.
Yeah, but the reason why I don't feel like it should be two people being out is because if you're the person hitting it, there could have been a running child that was, I mean, that you had no idea that a running child from behind you while you're playing Foursquare, you're trying to get somebody out, is kind of run over here and then perfect timing hits that child.
Or a ball falls
I would
in
be
from another
pissed
court.
if I get out. What if that was the final out of the time of your world championship and you're
Unless
out
you just
for-
want to remove the limit, then the limit idea.
I think
my
what we're
vote is
getting
to
at
remove the
is-
limit or to do the showdown on the second one, which by the way I
Yeah.
think is going to be few and far between, but that doesn't matter from what I said earlier. I'm okay.
What we're getting to is we want to try to prevent people from taking advantage of these rules, right?
That's
And
part of it.
we're trying to prevent people from making unfair hits that get other people out. That in an ideal environment they'd have a chance to return, and we're also trying to prevent recipients from
Taking advantage of
taking
the
advantage
rule.
of the do-over
For
rule.
example, a ball slams a billion feet away, you then run and just grab some. Oh, I could have got there, right?
Exactly.
Like that
Yeah, I mean,
can't happen either.
we're trying to prevent unfairness.
Yeah.
We're trying to prevent gaming, and at some point you go, look, if you're the one taking advantage of the rules, you're out. You know, quit being a jerk. As long as
another
everybody's Foursquare, don't be a jerk. But I mean, as long as everyone's got good intentions, understands the limits of the environment, understands that some plays are unfair in this environment that would be fair in a different environment. Hey, that hit, that move is off limits here. It's allowed somewhere else. It's allowed here at a different time, but for this game and this time, that move is not allowed. Does
Well,
somebody
we're
have an
not-
advantage in an
how do
unfair
we want to
environment? Yeah, maybe.
how do we want to wrap this up then? So
Well, let's do this. We're up against time. Let's table just the last part of this, which is,
The
do we want to limit
do-overs,
on
yeah.
this particular obstacle rule? Yes or no? And then if we do, what then happens? Is it a showdown? Are both people? What is it? Why don't we think about that now that we've had this conversation, and we'll pick it up either on through we can talk about it offline, or we can pick it up in the next show. But Joe, I know you're making notes and appreciate it. And thank you, by the way, for keeping us on track as well, because
Absolutely.
I can chat and get into it, and I think you guys know that by now. So please feel free to do that. If you want to send over your notes and your changes, and maybe to both Dan and I, and then that way we can make sure we have the most up-to-date version, make any updates, and then we can continue chatting through the second part of this either offline and let everybody know what we come up with, or we can pick it up on the next show. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
sounds good.
And to be fair to us, hey, we got part of a rule rewritten. We didn't rewrite the entire rule book in an hour. No worries. We made progress. We improved. We clarified something. So I'm
Yep.
giving ourselves a pat on the back for the work that we did.
Yeah, this
even
is
if
a
there's more
great
work to be done.
conversation.
I want to add something to this, not to the rule book, but to the show in general. What are your guys' thoughts on trying to set something up outside of work hours for a
Yeah.
longer period of time?
Absolutely.
Because now this isn't a shot at Eric, just saying, because the three of us can sit here and discuss a lot. We can go down these different tangents, and which eats a lot of time. So why don't, especially a conversation like this, what we're having, we're not going to have this done within an hour and go over every other thing. So why don't, outside of this, of the call, why don't we, the three of us, discuss ways we're find times outside of our work schedule to see if we can set up a 2-hour call
Absolutely.
or something.
Would that be something
Absolutely.
we'd want to be like part of this show to record, or you're just saying to
Yes.
do outside? Yes. Okay.
I mean, ultimately, we get to that plus editing it. Hey, we have a jam session. We're sitting in person. We're on Teams, whatever it is, and yeah, we'd love to be able
we're
to
trying to
edit
make
it
this
down.
into a podcast. This is a podcast essentially, so there's a lot we can discuss. Look at other different podcasts. Jocko's podcast. Look at Chris Jericho's podcast. Those are even like mystery podcasts. They're easily an hour to 3 hours long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're way more frequent. We're doing once a month, and we're discussing a lot in an hour. There's way more to discuss than the 1 hour allows. So
Especially when we
something
spend a half an hour on the ball.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm all for it. I don't know.
Hence why I
we got
came with
started
my
on weekdays, but
statement of it's not the ball that makes the game, it's the player.
absolutely.
We're gonna
Yeah.
end that conversation real quick.
You should have started with that, Joe. No.
I
think that's
blame
good.
me.
I would say you got to roll with the ball. You got to roll with the balls you have, like that. Or is that why you said we should stop the conversation?
Dan mentioned last time that maybe we start thinking about bringing in a guest. Are we not there yet, considering what we just talked about, or then on our next show, which we're looking to elongate, we also bring in a guest, but then also continue what we're doing? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I think we've got any amount of material stuff we could cover with guests. We can keep going on this for months, writing the rule book.
It depends on
whatever
so
we
this
want to
kind of
do.
goes down
is fine.
to now we need to start thinking about, I don't want to say scheduling, but we need to have, like, Eric, you bring up an agenda each time.
Yep.
We need to come up with an agenda for each air quotes episode, if you will. To figure out what we're going to discuss, the topics that we plan on discussing, and how we can implement guests, etc.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because if we're going to discuss rule changing, do we want guests to be part of this?
Mm.
in a sense of we're going to have them help us change rules, or do we want them to give us their perspective? Or do we want to keep rule changing between the three of us? And then when we bring guests in, provide them the idea of what we're thinking.
And I'm leaning more towards the rule changing discussions being between the three of us,
I
and
agree.
having guests be more of almost like a funner type of
A
show
lighter.
versus yeah. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the agenda we have, but I'm gonna rethink it with this frame of what Joe you just mentioned in terms of elongating.
And you can work with me on that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll send it off to you. I mean, maybe I'll take a first pass at it, send it you guys' way, and then, I mean, this is definitely a democracy here. I mean, I think we all have our own little nuggets that we're working on, obviously, but ultimately we're all doing it together. So absolutely.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I think continuing this discussion with the three of us, I don't want to bring in a series of rotating guests to talk about rule changes. It's going to go off the
Agreed.
rails quickly.
Yeah. Well, this was, I think, our longest show so far, but I also would argue it might be our best. I absolutely loved the conversation and the debates and everything we discussed. We got some late breaking news in the beginning of the show. We got an event coming up. There's just a lot going on. So, hey, get out there and play some Foursquare. If you heard anything that you like, give us a like, give us a comment, give us a share. Please reach out if you have any opinions about anything at all that we discussed.
Absolutely.
If you want to be a guest, if you want to be part of the event, whatever. So until next time, Dan, Joe will talk and we'll set something up here for next month and we'll continue everything we just discussed. But happy 4th, everyone.
See you guys next week.
All right.
Doodles.
Bye.